Jimmy Myers, next up on ESPN, Powerboat. Enjoy it. Make it a good day.
From St. Augustine, Florida, America's oldest city, the world's largest offshore powerboats, in the Key Capers St. Augustine Classic, racing over the open ocean for $50,000 in prizes. Hello there, everybody. I'm Gil Stratton, welcoming you to St. Augustine, which is hosting the powerboat race for the first time in history. Thousands of fans are lining the shore. This is the 7th in the races, the series toward the World Championship, and contention really runs deep. To tell us more about that, Jim Roller.
Well, Gil, contention isn't the word for it. We're down to white knuckle time in this year's chase to the World Championship, and in the open class, which we'll be featuring today, we've got a real battle royal. The defending world champion, Jerry Jacoby, has got a slim 37-point lead over three-time national champion Betty Cook. That one's going to go right down to the wire. Now, in the modified class, interesting situation has developed. Sal Magluta recently took the series point lead. He's trying to hold off Ron Leonard, who races with his two sons in the boat Country Boys. Well, the Seahawk team has provided an extra modified boat for this race. There's going to be two Seahawks out there. We could see some team tactics a la European road racing. That's going to be an interesting race to watch.
We're looking forward to it. Also sharing our cameras and microphones, the loveliest racer I have ever met, Paula Aiken.
Thank you, Gil. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful day here in St. Augustine. However, for the past week, we've had nothing but rain. It's been rough water, so today their tactics are going to change quite a bit. You can see they're going to be pushing their engines wide open all the way to the finish. You're going to find a lot of breakdowns. And you know, Gil, I'd love to be out there today.
I know you would. Thank you, Paula. And the boats are making their way out from the inside bay out to the open ocean for the start of this race. And the crowd waiting in anxious anticipation. They come from all over the country. This ESPN Sports exclusive is brought to you by the Seahawk Boat Corporation and the Seahawk Racing Team. And by Michelob Light, a rich, smooth-tasting light beer that you can compare to anything you like. And right now, Paula, as the boats are making their way out and the fans are just waiting for the start of the race, I imagine that the butterflies are really getting big in the tummies.
Oh, Gil, you have no idea what it's like to be out there. Even though these races have been racing all season long, they're true professionals, but there's lots of nervousness now, and there's a lot of apprehension at the start of a race.
I'll bet there is. Jimmy, your feelings?
Well, even with that nervousness, Gil, there's a lot of things to think about. They've got a 165-mile course to go around today. Here's a look at it. They'll be going up and down the beach, many laps around this course, and that run out in open water is going to be very important because offshore racing is not only speed and endurance, but without a good navigator, you're in trouble.
Well, the navigator is certainly 1/3 of that team, and here's a boat that's got 4 crew members. Isn't that unusual, Paula?
That's very unusual, Gil. I have actually never seen that before.
Well, we're about ready, and we'll be back with the start of the Key Capers St. Augustine Classic after we pause for this message.
Hey, Frank, want a wager on the race? For a case of beer? Sure. What's your brand?
These boats will cover 200 miles before this wager's settled, but it's worth the wait, because it's for Michelob Light, that rich, smooth taste you can compare to any beer you like.
You never beat us that bad before. We never raced for a whole case of Michelob Light before.
Michelob Light. Compare the taste.
Wednesday, top-notch racers Rick Mears, Gordon Johncock, and Mario Andretti bring you the high-speed excitement of Kart's Detroit News Grand Prix 150. Then the baseball pennant races are tightening up as the season winds down, and SportsCenter's sports specialists have all the latest scores and more. And relive the net result of the WCT Forum Classic as the world's top players vie for the championship and $100,000 prize money. It's a Total Sports Wednesday on ESPN.
As we look at the aerial view of the old fort here in St. Augustine, discovered by Ponce de Leon in 1513 as he looked for the Fountain of Youth. And these racing boats are looking for the Fountain of Power here today, as we have the open class with 11 starters, the sport class with 7 starters, 10 in the modified and 18 in the pro stock. Let's look at the starting grid right now. As you see them in the safe or milling area, they must turn counterclockwise.
During this time, Gil, they'll get all lined up and ready for the start. And here you see the boats on plane. They've got the start boat out in front of them, and they're moving. We're almost ready to go.
They're coming down now at about 75, building up to 80 miles an hour. There's the green flag, and we're racing. And here they come. They're racing now up to speeds of 95, close to 100 miles an hour as they come down, and Artisan takes the early lead.
He's got a small lead over Rocky Aoki, and he's in his 37.5-foot active cat. And there's the battle for third place currently. That's Eddie Trott on his Rampage and Paul Clauser in the Satisfaction. A lot of tight racing right off the bat.
Boy, and that ocean looks like it's rather smooth, Paula.
It relatively is here. Look at how the race between Betty Cook and Bud Light is coming along. Betty's going to pass him out, and those boats are close together at close to 95 miles an hour.
The Michelob Light and the Bud Light.
Boats of the sister brewery going at it there, and that Bud Light is the only offshore open-class boat that's running on outboard engines this time around. There's the promoter of this event, Jerry Kilpatrick.
The Apache. He is running in 4th place at the moment now as they make the turn. Jerry Jacoby right now. And look at him coming through there. Got a little wide of that turn, didn't he, Paula?
Oh, definitely. Those deep V's are able to make turns on the dime.
The deep V's as opposed to the catamarans.
Correct. This is a catamaran here. He's got 2 sponsons versus the deep V only having the 1.
And Rocky Aoki with Benny Hanna. And he is running in 1st place and doing a good job. You wonder about the intestinal fortitude of Rocky Aoki, the courage that this man has to get back into one of these powerful offshore racing boats after a near-fatal accident back in 1979. We asked Rocky why he returned to racing.
I never won the championship. I've been winning a lot of world record, a lot of national title with my different sports, such as wrestling, balloon racing. But I've been doing this for 6 years. Closest thing I did was 2nd. So I want to finish it, and I want to be a champion, either national champion or world champion. Then I can retire, I can look for something else.
Rocky is certainly a champion in our book right now, and there is the Benny Hanna running very, very nicely here off St. Augustine, Florida.
He's got a tight battle right now as he's being chased by this man, Eddie Trotta, in his 38-foot Cougar catamaran, and he's running very, very well. There's a nice tight shot, and these guys really get pounded around, even in the smooth water.
Paula, why do we have just 2 in the crew here in the Rampage?
Gil, this team has been racing now for about 2 years, and they're really professionals. And they can basically run with 2 people because they can navigate, drive, and throttle at the same time.
Oh, and look at this. What a great shot that is of these boats coming down around the turn here. This is turn number 2. And the different shapes and the different routes that they take around. I think that's very interesting. That inside boat to the right of your screen looked like he almost missed the turn.
He definitely almost missed it. And if he misses that turn, there could be a disqualification or a 3-minute penalty, depending on what the referee's decision would be.
There you see Al Copeland in the Popeyes boat. That's a cigarette boat, and he's coming off a very good year of international racing. He's coming off a win in the Harsworth Trophy. That's a 3-race series. He won 1 race in Detroit and 2 races in Europe, and now he's back racing in the United States and doing very well here.
Paula, when you're racing along and you get in the wake of another boat, does that make the ocean a little more choppy than it normally would be?
Definitely. We try not to run behind the boats because the water is almost impossible to read.
And the pilot's having no problem right now, and they are running in the clear. And with sights like this on the beach, you can be sure we'll return to the Kike for St. Augustine Classic after we pause for this timeout. Back at the St. Augustine Classic, you know we have 3 other classes racing in addition to the open class, and right now we're looking at the leader in the sport class. This is Bob Erickson. Tell us about this boat, Jimmy.
Well, this is a 30-foot Shadow Cat, Gil, and he is in tough competition right now for the High Point Championships. This is an important race for him.
Look at that boat go by him. That's Willie Diaz in El Boss. He is flying.
Diaz is probably one of the fastest pound-for-pound racers in the entire world of offshore powerboat racing. He's just a small guy, but he's got a big heart. In every race this year, he is either won or broken, and he's very proud of the fact that he's the world's fastest offshore powerboat racer.
And that was Willie. You were looking there at the upper left-hand corner of our screen, and look at El Boss. He is really pounding it out there. Incidentally, those clouds are beginning to thicken. We have had rain earlier in the week, as Paula mentioned, and we had sunshine earlier today, and now the black clouds are coming in again. And we may have some rain before this race is over.
Gil, in this turn, it's very important. They must stay at least 50 yards away from that turn boat. Any closer, and it's a disqualification, and too far away, and they're not identified, it's a disqualification also.
In other words, you've got to be very careful on those turns. That's for the safety of the people in the turn boats as well as the drivers.
Oh, definitely. I've come too close to boats, and they've let me know later on about it.
All right, back to the action now. As we have, oh, look out, we've got some problem here. Near turn 1, there is a boat that is in big trouble, and we've got some crewmen in the water.
Looks like one of the boats is disintegrated. We're still trying to find out who it is. It's the Benihana,
That's
Rocky
the leader in the race, Benihana.
Look at that. You've got a crew member swimming back. He's going back for someone, it looks like, that's in the water.
We've got a chopper on the scene, and there's the man that's in the water. We don't know who it is at this point. We'll try and find out for you. Look at that boat. It's totally destroyed on the right side.
Luckily, we're getting reports now that it's the Benihana, and that is Rocky Aoki in the water.
Gil, that's Howard Quam who's swimming out to him now, and I know the first thing he's got to be doing is taking off his helmet to make sure that Rocky's breathing.
Rocky is not moving, however, and this looks like a very serious situation. Rocky Aoki, who has been injured so very badly back in 1979, the victim of another crash here in the St. Augustine Classic. Now we see his right arm has moved a little bit. Jimmy, it appears that Rocky is conscious as we have a patrol boat coming onto the scene now.
We have very elaborate medical facilities on hand at these races. They have 2 medical helicopters. They've got Coast Guard patrol boats, just in case anything like this happens, that it won't turn into a major tragedy.
And also, Paula, you have flotation gear on so that you will stay afloat.
Definitely. Oh, look at the side of that boat. It looks like he's just blown out the complete side.
Paula, why don't you go down to the beach and see if you can check on Rocky's condition, and we'll pass that along to our viewers as the race still continues despite that very, very serious accident down there near turn 1. We're looking now at one of the modified boats.
This is a very interesting race, Gil. We told you about this earlier. That's Sal Magluta. He's running for the National High Point Championship against this man. That's Chuck Jepson in the boat Lovett. That's a 30-foot shadow cat. Jepson has been doing very well all season long. He's got 2 victories to his credit before this St. Augustine race, and he has been giving Magluta a lot of competition throughout the season. We told you earlier in the show that the Seahawk people had brought out another boat, the modified class, to help Magluta. That strategy was a bust. That boat didn't last only about the first couple of 100 yards in the race, and so Magluta's out there all alone. These are the pro stock boats. These are a little bit smaller. Sometimes they call them the training class in offshore racing. Class 4 is another name for them. Normally they're less than 32 feet, and they don't develop as much horsepower. They run a lot of the boats run outboard engines. They normally run about 800 horsepower, where those open class boats are up around 1,500 horsepower.
And these would be a little bit easier to handle, I would think.
Well, I don't know about that. They're all running in the same type of water, and they're capable of speeds upwards around 86 miles an hour. These boats are quite fast also, and it's a situation where it's a good hands-on experience for a driver because the boats are fast and they're light.
In other words, there really isn't too much difference then, despite the difference in horsepower.
No, these boats are quite quick, and they skim along the water because they're lighter, and because it is a completely different class, they can also develop great speeds.
All right now let's get down to the beach because Paula Aiken has got a report on the condition of Rocky Aoki. So, Paula, let's get down to you at the beach and find out exactly what's happening with Rocky.
Gil, here's the medical report on Rocky Aoki. We understand that he's been put into the gurney, that he is all right. He's got a possible fracture of the left hip and the left leg. He's on IVs at this time, but we understand he's stable.
All right, Paula, thank you very much, and you can come back and rejoin us now in our vantage point here We're happy to hear that the injuries are no more severe than what you've just reported, although that certainly is a very painful injury or set of injuries that Rocky has suffered here. His second major accident in the last 3 years.
Aoki is a man of great courage, as you were telling us, we were discussing earlier. A lot of intestinal fortitude. He's lived with pain a lot of his life. But that's the battle that's for the lead in the open class. With Rocky out, this has become a two-man battle. Tony Garcia and the Arneson is on the inside. As these boats are flying up to this turn, Arneson, that boat is shooting down on the inside gill, and he's got a little bit of advantage over Trotta. Trotta has backed off just a little bit, and that's given Garcia a little bit of an advantage. And look at that rooster tail. It almost looks like an unlimited hydroplane out there throwing up a big spray.
What a wonderful shot there. You can see the shadow of our helicopter with the cameraman aboard. The helicopters cannot get too close to the boats, or they could give the drivers some real problems. And we'll with more of the Kiefer St. Augustine Classic after we pause for this message.
Hey, Frank, gonna wager on the race for a case of beer? Sure. What's your brand?
These boats will cover 200 miles before this wager's settled, but it's worth the wait, because it's for Michelob Light, that rich, smooth taste you can compare to any beer you like.
You never beat us that bad before.
We never raced for a whole case of Michelob Light before.
Michelob Light. Compare the taste.
Back in St. Augustine, Florida, with the St. Augustine Offshore Powerboat Classic, Paula Aiken has rejoined us as we look at the Apache, running in the top 5.
That's Jerry Kilpatrick, and besides being an offshore powerboat racer, he's a promoter of the St. Augustine race. Very unique boat. It's a Squadron 12 designed by Don Arno, the same man that designs the cigarette boats.
Well, he's running very well as we take a look now at the ancient city of St. Augustine, Florida. This is the oldest city in America. Definitely a Spanish influence and lots of things for the tourists to do down here. A charming city, really, dating back to 1513. There is the first wooden schoolhouse in America. I know some people that may say they've gone there. Some of the hotels and the villas, definite Spanish influence, a lot of fountains, and of course the most famous fountain of them all, the Fountain of Youth, that was discovered by Ponce de Leon. Lovely Spanish courtyards. And Jerry Kilpatrick has brought the race here to St. Augustine for the first time, and the old Surrey with a fringe on top. And there you see the oldest house in America. Surrey taking its time. Very slow, easy way of going here in St. Augustine. A laid-back community, right on the water. And today, we have speed, offshore powerboat racing.
That's more of those open class boats. The man that's the defending world champion, Jerry Jacoby. He's the man that's closest to us, and he's moving in on Jerry Kilpatrick. These boats are flying at this point.
Okay, at this time we can tell that the boats are getting much lighter. Their speeds are picking up. They're getting close to 100 miles an hour.
Well, is that because they burned off some fuel?
Yes, halfway through the race now, they'll pick up an easy 5 or 6 miles an hour.
Just from weight?
Just from weight. Gas weighs about 7 pounds per gallon.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You know, they cut 35 miles off this course, and that's going to change their strategy because they've got an added 250 pounds now in that boat.
When these boats start a race, they try and calculate just like car racers do, right down to the last pint of how much fuel they're going to need. And that course change really left them fat, as it were, with a lot of extra fuel on hand.
There's the Michelob Light, driven by Betty Cook, and she was your inspiration for racing, Paula.
Oh, definitely. I just love watching Betty run. She looks a little bit slow here. It looks like she's having a little trouble today.
And the owner of the Michelob Light, Bernie Little, is delighted about the growth of offshore powerboat racing, and we talked to him about where the sport is going.
I think that it's getting to be more of a spectator sport. I know in Detroit, New Orleans, and these different races around, we're running closer into shore. It's bringing a lot more people involved in it. We're getting ESPN involved in it. And when they get involved, that gets many, many thousands of people involved. And I think that by moving it into closer to the shoreline, as they've done here and Miami at the World Championship, I think it can't do anything but just really go straight forward.
Bernie Little, the owner of this boat, the Michelob Light. And the folks here at St. Augustine certainly enjoying what Bernie was talking about, being along the shoreline and having an opportunity to see what's going on. And right now it looks like the Popeye is dead in the water.
Oh, Gil, that's what's really heartbreaking about a race. You put so much money into it and time, and there you find an engine go down, and you're back there, and you know you're out of the race when the hatch goes up.
When the hatch goes up, is that the same thing as lifting the hood at Indianapolis?
The same thing.
Boy, oh boy. Now, he seems to still be going. There's a wake behind the boat.
Yeah, but he's only going on one engine, and he's not doing around 95 to 100 miles an hour like the other racers. He's going to have a hard time if he gets it started playing catch-up.
But he's got enough power so he can get it back into shore safely.
It looks like he's got enough power there. He's going to limp home, though.
What a tough break for the Popeye.
Yeah, he's been doing quite well this year to take the Harmsworth Trophy and bring it back to the United States, and we wish him all the luck.
Well, he'll be back to race another day. And now we go back to the action with the boat that's running in second place. That is the Rampage. And she is handling beautifully at the moment.
Oh, look at her. She's doing at least 100 miles an hour there, and she can't even catch the Arneson caddies out front.
What a race this is for first place. The Arneson leading the Rampage by not over 100 yards.
No, this is what they call offshore powerboat racing, Gil. That's a fact.
Tony Garcia in this one is going to be looking for his second straight offshore powerboat victory, and if he does that, he'll be the first double winner in the open class in 1982. He's got those KS&W engines fine-tuned right into the perfect point. Look at that action.
That's really a dangerous situation there. Rampage is caught away wrong, and he's temporarily out of control. He's pulled back on the throttles, and Arneson's going to pick up on him right there. This is probably how Rocky damaged his boat and blew that sponson out. That's very dangerous.
Going by a slower craft there, actually lapping one of the slower boats.
That's right, part of the P class, or pro stock that we told you about earlier, 4 races within one. This is the Vince Rinaldi family out of Tappan, New Jersey, running in the Rolling Thunder. They're in a tight battle right now with Surface Grinder. That's Mike Miniana, and they have been running well all season long. That's a family effort. They have a good time racing, and they provide with a lot of action. These P boats normally come out with the strongest field as far as actual numbers, and they provide a lot of tight racing.
And we'll be back with more of the Kikefer St. Augustine Classic after this timeout. Back at St. Augustine, Florida for the offshore powerboat St. Augustine Classic, Paula Aiken, Jim Roller, and yours truly, Gil Stratton. We hope you're enjoying the action because they are flying out there on the open ocean. Right now, we're looking at the boat that's running in second place right now. That is the Rampage, and right ahead of it is the Arneson. And we saw a tremendous struggle here just a moment or two ago, and I'm going to ask Paula Aiken to take a second look at it as we will go to the slow motion and explain exactly from a technical standpoint what's happening, Paula.
At 100 miles an hour out there, Gil, things happen fast, and Rampage is just a perfect example of that. He's been chasing Garcia all day long, and he's really trimming it up here to try to pass him, and that's probably what happened to Rocky Ioki. He's going to come down on his side, and that's a very dangerous situation.
Now, as he goes up into the air, what do you have to look out for? The way you come down onto the wave?
Right.
There he goes high.
Right. Yeah, there he comes down right there.
Low.
I'm sure they got wet in that one. They took water on, and you can stuff the nose and just break the boat totally apart.
That's the time that you have to pull back on the throttle.
Right, and you can see there he did, and Sammy, the professional he is as a throttleman, just leaped out in the front.
All right. Jim Roller had a chance to talk to Howard Arneson before the race.
Howard, 1982 for a while looked like a frustrating season for you. In the last race, it all came together. Got to have some good feelings coming into this one.
That was a great feeling, really. You know, we've had some two-bit parts break and so forth and so on, and we're beginning to wonder, you know, if it was ever going to happen, but it did, and it was a great feeling, believe me.
What about this race? The boats are coming in for their first rough water race of the year. How's the Arneson Drive going to do in that rough water?
We, as you know, last year in the Sagatuck race, it was probably one of the roughest races all year, and 5 minutes from the finish line, we were in first place. and we broke apart. The boat's capable of running in rough water. There's more so than people realize. The thing is, do we want to punish it? Is it worth it to go out and maybe do some damage to the hull? And we'll have to play it by ear tomorrow. Hopefully it's going to get better, the weather.
Now, what about the drive system? How effective is the drive in the rough water?
No problems at all, really. It's a misconception. Some people think if it's rough, we're at a disadvantage. I think we're at an advantage in the rough water. The drives don't drop in the water and hook the water and tip the nose down, and it's like a gliding stone. So that should be no problem at all. If you were running the boat, you would not know whether you had surface props back there or not in rough water.
I think that Howard has come up with an innovation that may change this sport all around, couldn't it, Paula?
Oh, definitely. He's really got himself a product there.
Now we move back to some more of the underclass racing, and we've got pro stock boats, and that's Vince Rinaldi and his two sons in their boat Rolling Thunder, a 32-foot Cobra. They're being chased right now by George Hertel and his boat Fever, that yellow one that's closest to us. Now, these P-boats, as we told you earlier, are a little bit of a training class. They're lighter, they're not quite as heavy in the horsepower area, but they're quite quick. And Paul, when you're racing in the modified class, which is a little bit quicker, and when the open class boats come up on these, do these boats ever get in the way of the P-class boats?
No, they certainly don't. You've got a navigator on board, and he's looking around all the time, and he's letting you know who's coming up beside you or behind you, and you know where you're at. And so that you have a chance to move over.
You don't have a rear view mirror then?
No, I don't carry one of those with me, Gil.
Depend on the navigator at all times.
Here we've got Gene Whip racing in a velocity called Fox, and he's doing quite well this year with some new OMC outboards. And this particular hull is what we raced last year.
Those OMC outboards are from the Johnson Outboard Company. First time they've been back in offshore racing, and this boat has already won 2 races this season. Good first year back for them.
Well, it certainly is, and he seems to be going in beautiful shape right now. Now we go to the M class. This is the modified class, and we had 10 starters in this class.
We've been talking about Sal Magluta all day long. He's getting a lot of competition in this race from Chuck Jepson and his 30-foot Shadowcat Lovett, and also these folks. This is Super Fox, Rod Presley. It's another velocity hull like Paul was telling us about earlier. This is an interesting story. They've more or less gone around, collected up all the parts they could find, and have got themselves a race boat.
They certainly have, and you have to admire these young men for it. They're racing also on a velocity. They're up there with the leaders. And this boat has a pad bottom, which is different than the Deep V and the Catamaran, and it seems to be proving itself in open ocean racing.
What's the difference about it, Paula?
Well, it works into a very small degree towards the bottom. It sits up on top of the wave, similar to an Unlimited, and so it goes over with less drag.
Jimmy Roller talked to Magluta, who was closing in on the championship before the race, and it might be interesting to find out exactly what Sal had to say as we look at the Seahawk now, and it's really flying.
Sal, you're closing in on the championship. A couple events to go. You're getting closer. What's going through your mind at this point?
Well, you get a little pressure, you get butterflies, but, I feel confident. The boat's been running great all year. It looks like it's going to be our kind of water from now on, and so I feel very confident that we should, keep up there at #1.
Your kind of water, you looking for the rough stuff?
Well, we're looking for rough, maybe not as rough as it's been the last few days, because that kind of water is more like a survival, than really a race when it gets that rough, but just rough enough to slow down the cats a bit and, give me some competition.
Magluta has been running the KS&W engine most of the season, so we checked with Steve Oliver in the plant to see one of these engines on the dyno.
On this machine, we can test the power output of each engine to make sure it comes up to specification and check for any leaks we may have, which would be difficult to repair in the boat. And during our less busy times of the year, we can use this stand to develop new products which will give us more power for next season's engines, or perhaps develop a more reliable engine.
Gil, most of these racers dyno their engines. This is where they find out their performance and horsepower before putting them in the boat for water testing.
Boy, they sure are beautiful. Looks like a pipe organ there.
Oh, they're beautiful and expensive.
What would one of these boats cost?
A complete boat, totally rigged with the truck and trailer, probably about $500,000.
Wow. We'll be back with more of the Kika for St. Augustine Classic after this timeout.
Hey, Frank, want to wager on the race for a case of beer? Sure. What's your brand?
These boats will cover 200 miles before this wager's settled, but it's worth the wait, because it's for Michelob Light, that rich, smooth taste you can compare to any beer you like.
You never beat us that bad before.
We never raced for a whole case of Michelob Light before.
Michelob Light. Compare the taste.
While we're away, Rocky Aoki has been brought ashore, and Paula Aiken is standing by down by the ambulance. Here comes Rocky right now.
Rocky, do you have just a second?
I'm okay.
You're okay?
I think two of my leg is shot. My left thigh and my right ankle. But I'm okay. No problem.
Good going, Rocky.
Rocky Aoki, and as you can hear him say, he's okay, but boy, he took a pounding out there in that ocean, Jimmy.
A true sportsman and a true man of courage. As we were discussing earlier, he is just one of these hang tough people that refuses to give up. As he told us earlier, his quest is to win either the World Championship or the National Championship, and all that we can say is that we wish him Godspeed in his recovery and that quest for that championship.
Right, and the race continues out there. We have Black Sunday in the P class.
Here's some more of these pro stock boats, and there you see them running with 3 outboard engines. And these boats are, as we said, 800 horsepower developed by these boats, and they are running a course that's a little bit shorter than what the open class boats will run in this race. They don't make quite as many laps around the circuit, and there you see the surface grinder.
As you mentioned, they don't go quite as far. It's exactly the same course, just fewer laps.
That's true, Gil. They tend to start them later, so the offshore boats have time to get more laps in. Sometimes the course is a little bit different. Sometimes the offshore boats will have an extra leg on one lap that will separate the distance between the boats.
And there is the leader in the sport class, El Boss, with Willie Diaz at the wheel.
We told you, run till it breaks. Willie Diaz, he's running smooth today. He looks great out front all alone.
Yeah, Jim, and Bob Erickson is running in second place. He's been in a dogfight for the lead in the national championship standings in the sports class, and he nearly lost his boat before it was ever put in the water. And that's pressure, as he explained to Jimmy earlier.
It puts a lot of pressure on me. I tell you, I don't know if that puts a lot of pressure on it, but I put a lot of pressure on me because I really want it bad. And, you know, that's what I'm here for. That's why we brought our boat down last night. Day before yesterday, my throttle man, Harry Wellman, that takes care of the boat up in New Jersey, he called me up and said he had an accident on the tow truck and ran it into the Baltimore Tunnel. And so it wiped out the truck, bent up the trailer, put a little scratch in the boat, and I didn't sleep much that night, I'll tell you. But we got it down here, we're going to run, and that's what it's all about.
Bob Erickson, and run he is.
He's been locked in that tight battle in the sport class all year long, and he has been running very well here. He's currently running second to Diaz, as we told you before, and boy, that's a rough road to hoe, to have your boat almost destroyed in an accident and then have to come down here and race, and he's doing well.
Yes, he is, and you can see some of the spectators along the shoreline there as the Apache is now racing by us.
Those fans are cheering on the hometown favorite, Jerry Kilpatrick, and that's him running right there. He's currently in 4th position in the open class, and there you see our second place man, that's Eddie Trotta. He's keeping the pressure on Tony Garcia and Sammy James in that Arneson boat.
You know, there's a tremendous race in each one of the classes, all 4 of these races within one race.
Indeed, the National Point Standings Championships in all 4 classes are going to go right down to the wire this year. First time that's ever happened.
And to find out more about these KS&W engines, again, we talked to Steve Oliver at the factory, and Steve was kind enough to give us kind of a personal tour. And not being a mechanic, he kept it rather simple. And that's the way I needed it, because I don't know much about engines, but Steve Oliver knows all about them.
This is an open class racing engine. It's based on a Chevrolet truck block and Chevrolet heads. And with the aftermarket parts we use inside, it displaces about 480 cubic inches and develops about 650 horsepower. And that's a pair of these will propel an open class boat to about 100 miles an hour.
And 100 miles an hour is exactly what's happening out here in the open ocean. There's your leader right now, the Arneson. And what is that in the back that we see sticking up there, Jimmy? Is that the Loran?
That's what that is, Gil. It's a navigational device well, it's similar to sonar. I guess it's probably the easiest way to say it. It sends out a signal, and that's the only navigational aid besides line of sight and the charts that they give them before the race that helps these guys in that competition.
And we'll be back with more of the Key Capers St. Augustine Classic after we pause for these messages. We're back at the St. Augustine Classic, the Key Caper St. Augustine Classic here in Florida. And Paula, there's Benihana, and boy, I tell you, it was really wrecked out there in that ocean.
Yes. Oh, look at the side of it. That's Kevlar, and it's a lighter-built boat, and it looks like he just did what I told you he did. He dug that spons, and the water came in, and it just tore the whole complete side out of her. And that's tough luck because something like that is very hard to fix.
Boy, they're just lucky to even get that out of the ocean.
Very lucky. However, with a catamaran like that, they have two sponsons, and the other side held them up. This boat, to me, was about $350,000, $400,000 boat, and it almost looks like they're going to put petunias in it.
Well, although injured, we are happy to report that Rocky Aoki is in the hospital and will recover. Back to the action now. This is the open class we're looking at, and we're getting down to the final seconds.
Boy, look at him there. You've got Howard, you've got Rampage there, fighting it out still with Tony Garcia, and I've never seen a race last as close as this one. The two of them are dogfighting it the whole complete time.
Rampage, the second place boat on the left of your screen. Arneson driven by Garcia on the right.
They're flat out in this water as they're coming into that home stretch area. And that, we told you about the clouds coming in. We haven't seen any rain as yet, but the squalls have been hitting some of the other classes, and these boats are running flat out to the finish. They're almost coming to the home stretch. This baby's going to go right down to the wire.
You know, you have no idea what it feels like to have that rain come down on you during 100 miles an hour. It hurts.
It's got to smart a lot.
Terribly, and you can't see. It just blinds you.
How do you navigate that?
Just kind of like the seat of your pants.
Well, it's still a race down here. As Arneson on the right of your screen, you can see the rooster tails spouting up, and Rampage on the left, and they are just really getting it on at close to 100 miles an hour in the open ocean here off St. Augustine, Florida.
Boy, it's anybody's race. This is so close. This is really a good race going on here. I'm so excited here.
You know, it's like an election night. They say it's too close to call.
It is. It is way too close. I know they're coming in towards the finish, and those clouds are coming in. It's going to be raining on them, and it's going to be a tight race.
Now, they're going to have to come down through that little narrow inlet. That'll be the first time since they left on the parade lap to go out onto the open ocean. That could be a problem as well.
Oh, they canceled the first part of the race that comes through the inlet because it is so narrow. And now at the finish line, you've got two boats doing over 100 miles an hour coming through that narrow inlet. It's just going to open up the skies on them. It's going to be raining, and I'll tell you, it's a very dangerous situation. I don't know how they're going to find that finish boat.
Looks like the Rampage is now taking the lead by about a boat length.
Oh, it's anybody's race. They've been fighting back and forth all day.
Some of the classes have already finished in this race, and there's the winner, the Manta, driven by Lance Rubel, and Jimmy Roller has gone down to the dock to talk to the happy crew. So we'll be with Jimmy in just a moment or two, and the Manta, and you know Lance, don't you?
Oh, very well. He's the P-class world champion for 1981, and believe me, to have that checkered flag in your hand is one of the greatest thrills in the world.
As we go back to the open class, final laps now. Arneson on the right and battling with the Rampage on the left. And there's not over 30 yards separating these two boats at any point.
It's like I said, anybody's race. Arneson's moved back into the lead again, and look at how he's flying. He has got that boat totally trimmed out on the fine edge. And that's what makes you a winner, to be able to race on that fine edge. You got to be able to open those throttles up.
Well, it doesn't get a little squirrely. It looks like it may be, what would be the correct terminology, yawing?
well, that's sailboat term, but he's...
Sorry.
That's all right. He's got it trimmed out there on the loose edge, and he's very light on weight now. He's probably lost most of his gasoline, and those cats do need a little weight to help hold them into the water.
On the smooth water, the catamaran has the edge. The deep V would have the edge in the deep water or the heavy seas. But right now, as we watch these final moments of this race, let's get down and join Jimmy Roller with the winner, Lance Rubel, and Manta, the winner of the Pro Stock.
Lance had a little bit of everything out there. Weather, a little bit of rough sea. How was the race?
It was really good. We finally got a race this year that became an equalizer for the deep V's and the cats, and that's what we got today. We had some flat water and some little rollers 4 to 5 feet out there.
What about the rain? Give you any problems?
Not at one time. It just, when it hits you initially, it bothers you. Then you get used to it, and it really doesn't bother you too much.
Who gave you the most trouble competition-wise?
Well, squared up was back and forth. We were up, they were up, in the Marlboro boat out there, the cat, with 2 inboards in it. He was out in front quite a bit, too. The 3 of us seemed to be out there all the time.
All right, well, congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Jimmy, and back now out to the open class as they're coming down to the wire, and this race is still a wide-open race. Paula, I can't believe that they've gone this far and to still be this close together.
It's almost an impossibility. I've never seen a race this close, except for perhaps one that I was in once. But Eddie's really doing a great job out there. He's just handling it so well, considering he really had a close call like we discussed earlier.
With the Rampage. And he is on the left of the screen. You can just see a little bit of the wake of the Arneson here at the bottom of your screen, and they are about 30 yards apart.
Riding just beautiful. That's one of the most beautiful sights a racer could look at, to see his boat out there in the lead and running. Oh, look at him. He's going across his wake now. That's really a dangerous situation. He's got those outdrives up. He's going 100 miles an hour, and you could roll over doing that.
All right, well, Paula, for 165 miles, Eddie Trotta has been riding in Tony Garcia's spray, so perhaps he felt that getting over to the right side might be a quicker side if he's going to catch the Arneson, because they are getting close to the end of this race, and they're going to have to hurry. So Eddie Trotta really pushing the Rampage, trying to catch up and catch that leader, Arneson. But right now, Jimmy Roller is standing by with the winner of the modified class, Chuck Jepson. So let's get down to Jimmy at dockside.
Chuck, pressure was on. You had to beat Sal Magluta this time around, and you did it. Good feeling.
Thank you very much. Sal's very tough to beat. He boat ran very, very fast, and it was nip and tuck all the way.
How were the water conditions out there? Advantageous to the cat, or was it a pretty even day for you?
I think it was about the equal, for both the cat and a V-bottom. The seas were about 2 to 4, would have you pretty good swells, but nothing really super duper rough.
What do you think gave you the advantage in the end?
I think we did a little bit better coming through the rain. We hit the check boat a little bit better than he did. Other than that, I can't see very much other.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Chuck talking about the rain, and boy, there is some rain up around the finish now, as the Arneson still with a slight lead over the Rampage.
He looks like he's coming in blind there. He's just really moving along. I know he's doing over 105 miles an hour. You can just tell the speeds of these boats by the way that they're landing in the water and the way that they're coming out. You can see he's just totally coming out there with his outdrives. He's really got it on the fine line.
But he's able to hang on and seems to have it under perfect control.
Right there, look, he's coming into the cut now, and you'll be able to see how narrow that cut is and why the race committee decided at the last minute to perhaps change that and not cause the boats to come in. It's a dangerous situation. Imagine boats coming in and out at the same time.
Now this way, at least they're just going in the one direction coming into the bay.
Right, it's an excellent finish for him. Boy, he's moving. I'm really impressed with the way that boat's running and those new surface props that Arneson has.
And these are the final moments now of the St. Augustine Classic. Now you can see the rain beginning to pelt that boat.
Gil, I don't know how they managed to see in that. That's got to hurt them.
Look at that. Look at that sky. Woo. And here it comes the finish. And the Arneson hanging on as he goes by the finish line, gets the checkered flag, and Rampage right behind him as they come through a driving rain right at the end of the race, and the Arneson has hung on to win it. And there is the wave, the victory wave, from the cockpit of the winning boat here of the St. Augustine Classic, the Arneson. And right behind him, the Rampage. What a finish, Paula.
Oh, what a... I bet that Tony Garcia and Sammy James were just wondering if they could even find that finish boat in the rain.
Well, I tell you, some of these folks here sitting on the shore don't realize how tough it's been out there for close to 200 miles on the open ocean. And we'll be back after this timeout. Gil Stratton back dockside in St. Augustine, Florida, where we have just witnessed the finish to the Keycaper St. Augustine Classic, and what a finish it was. With the Arneson, and there you see the winning crew as they have come ashore after a tremendous battle with the Rampage all the way for close to 200 miles of open ocean. And Jimmy Roller is standing by on the dock to talk to the winners.
Tony Garcia, the season's first two-time winner. Good feeling?
Tons fantastic feeling. It was a hard-earned one, too. They, between the rain, sleet, snow, whatever, we came in darn near in the dark coming in, but it was a good thing we did our homework. We knew exactly where the opening was and shot it in. Rampage ran a fantastic race. He was behind us about 30 yards back and forth, and he followed all the way through the finish line. So this was an exciting win, and what better place to do it than St. Augustine.
Sammy, how's everything with the engine? Smooth throughout the race?
Real good. I told Tony, I said halfway through the race, I had to promise God to go to church now. They blessed the boat last time. Boat really run good. KS&W did a fantastic job on the engines, and the Arneson drives are just perfect. They just really outperformed the competition out in the rough water.
You know, Sammy isn't kidding. The boat last time was blessed here at St. Augustine, and we've won ever since. How about that, huh?
Well, a great race it was, and as the fans head for home, they have witnessed the first running of the St. Augustine Classic. A great finish to a tremendous race. And we were very privileged to be here. The hospitality here in St. Augustine has been unparalleled. We had a fast and an exciting race, and even the local weatherman showed us a sample of all his wares. Right, Jimmy?
He sure did, Gil. I tell you, they had everything to contend with out on that course today, but Tony Garcia, you hear the celebration behind us. He made it 2 in a row. That's the first time that's happened in 82.
Paula, do you have a final thought?
Yes, Gil. Even though they changed the race course at the last minute, everything seemed to run just perfectly. And on a good note, we heard that Rocky Oki's going to be all right.
All right, and here are the final standings. In the pro stock, the winner was Manta, driven by Lance Rubel. Second was the Marlboro with John Evans at the wheel, and Squared Up was third with George Frogner. In the offshore class 3, the modified, the winner was Lovett with Chuck Jepson. Seahawk was second, driven by Sal Magluta, and third was Super Fox with Rod Presley at the wheel. The offshore class 2, the sport, El Boss, the winner with Willie Diaz. Second place went to Erickson Racing with Bob Erickson, the driver. And third was White Heat with Terry Phillips. In the Class 1, the open classification, the winner was the Arneson Borg Warner Special, driven by Tony Garcia. Rampage with Eddie Trotta was second, and Cigarette Hawk with Jerry Jacoby was third. On behalf of Paula Aiken and Jim Roller, this is Gil Stratton saying so long from St. Augustine, Florida. As we take a final look at the winners. Has been an Interspace Video Cinevid International production.
This ESPN event has been brought to you by Michelob Light, an exceptional light beer with a rich, smooth taste.